Okay, it's gone 9 o'clock. I open our Civil Defence meeting and ask Councillor Faulkner to open with a karakia or thoughts for us today. Thank you.
Thank you, Your Worship. Morena all. I was thinking this morning, civil defence, emergency management, and it feels like at the moment we're living in a permanent state of emergency, and it's kind of easy to feel a bit lost sometimes in it all. But an old saying that I do love is the fact that the best way to find yourself is to lose yourself in the service of others. So let us pray. Lord, thank you for bringing us together. Come and dwell in each of our hearts. Equip us, challenge us, comfort, teach and inspire us. For those who are sick, we ask for healing. For those who are away from us, we ask your blessings to be upon them. For yours is the glory. Amen.
Amen. Thank you for that. Okay, good morning. I've got a chunky agenda in front of us today, more than 100 pages. I just want to acknowledge Ben. Thank you for a very thorough update here, made for interesting reading, a very wide range that you will update us on today, and we look forward. I also want to welcome Ian from NEMA. Ian, thank you for joining us today. I assume you're from you're in Wellington because I don't see the sun behind you.
Correct.
We won't hold it against you.
Thank you.
So, councillors, I have an apology from Councillor Robinson. Do I have any other apologies? If not, I'll move the apology from Councillor Robinson, seconded by Councillor Sheldrake. All in favour, hands up. Thank you, carried. So any declarations of interest today? Nothing I can see. So let's go to page 3 where we have our minutes, our draft minutes. Any comments or queries? If not, can someone please move it? Councillor Seymour.
Madam Chair, I'm happy to move the minute, but I just have a couple of queries which I didn't find elsewhere in the document. The status of the rain is a 3.1 on page 3. The status of the rain gauge at Tokomara Bay, it was being discussed with NIWA as to whether or not it might be relocated. So one question, and then further over the second page, 10.1. There was to be a drill scheduled for February 22. Have we had that, or has it needed to be put off? Thank you. Those were 2 queries from matters arising, Madam Chair.
Kia ora, thank you for that. Is that Ben? Are you going to answer those questions? Thank you.
Kia ora koutou. Morning. So with the first point for Councillor Seymour, that rain gauge has been from the update from Dr. Cave has been confirmed to be applied there. At the moment, they're still waiting for the equipment to be able to place that into the location, which is in the Mangahone catchment up the valley. The other one, the exercising, I'd have to say we've probably exercised in the sense that we've been activated probably 3 times since kicking off from the 10th of January this year. So, but equally, it just highlights really a point in terms of that training for the structure as we take us into 2022. So, and obviously we're actively, in essence, integrated with the COVID Tucker 2 hub, supporting that as in terms of the ongoing pandemic response also.
Thanks. So can I just ask though, the point made at 10.1, it actually says the challenges regarding the river splitting into 3 areas and Kaiti containing a large part of the population would be addressed in the drill. I mean, I hear exactly what you're saying, Ben, and we've had more than enough occasions to need to use civil defence. But will some comment be made around the learnings maybe for, otherwise that bullet point wouldn't have arisen?
Sorry, and actually I'll correct in terms of my reference to that. So what we're referring to there is the work we're planning for the 3-day workshop, which is specifically focused on the urban response and recovery with an urban context.
Right.
That's really, I've just had to delay that. I've pushed it into the initial planning for this. because it's going to be quite considerable in terms of contribution, both from a national and equally with our key lifelines partners for that. That's looking at the first or second week of April, which really gets us into the timeframe for that.
Thank you very much. Thanks, Madam Chair.
Okay, I'll second our minutes. If there are no further questions, all in favour, hands up please. Contrary, carried. Thank you for that. Okay, we also have our public excluded minutes, which is just nothing public excluded in there, just accepting our minutes. Any questions or queries? Nothing?
Move.
Moved by Pat, seconded by Larry. All in favour, hands up please. Thank you, carried.
Madam Chair, have we got Bill Burdett on the line?
Yep, he was. I saw him in chambers earlier. He's sitting in the chambers, Pat.
Oh, jolly good. Yes, I can see in the distance. Thank you.
Yeah. Okay, so I go to our action sheet. Thanks, Ben. I see both are still in progress. So you will update us as that goes ahead. Okay, councillors, without further ado, I am going to take us to page 9. Very interesting report. We've got 6 or 7 bullet points there that is covered in here. Ben, do you want to give us a quick overview, and then we can open the floor for councillors, because I'm sure there might be a few questions of clarification. Thank you, Ben. All over to you.
Kia ora. Thank you, Worship. So I guess really what kicks off the report in terms of that very brief summary, it probably doesn't really highlight the tempo and the activity that's actually taken place over the last quarter of 2021. Specifically, we've had obviously the natural hazard events with the November floods, the December equally what we had come through into the December period as well. Running concurrent to that was really the as we're heading into summer, was also the quite a considerable amount of work undertaken for the regional preparation for the onset of COVID, specifically around at that stage Delta, and equally with the emergence of Omicron coming through there as well. So the COVID-19 update, as you'll see, really captures the amount of work and what it's taken to actually get a regional response coordinated to deliver a very much an integrated model with the clinical and the welfare components, are the two key aspects of that. You'll see there's a diagram there that really, well, sorry, as part of that process, I should say, we ran two quite large workshops. Really, that the first one highlighted that we didn't really have that sort of things gelling in that sense for how the various organisations and what it takes to bring a regional response together. But I'd certainly take heart by the end of it, by the time we got to the third workshop, and what it quickly ironed out the wrinkles in that whole organisational structure and response there. And that really ended up with the formation of the Takatu Hub, which is a health-led hub. I think it's quite an achievement to have managed to get that from where we started. And the key thing with it, really, you've got, is that we use the tagline regionally connected, community-led and whānau-centred. So that really echoes the approach, even with the iwi partners involved as part of that, the layers of support that wrap around what it takes to get a support for primarily the welfare component, the clinical aspects of COVID. Well and truly, that's the health realm for that, and that's pretty well sort of mature in terms of what the Ministry of Health and leads that with. But for the welfare one, and which I guess is quite a significant piece of coordination, hence the hub had to form. And equally, that hub, which is located in Peel Street, has the MSD as a key component built into that. Health, and equally the updates from the clinical integrators part of that weekly reporting that goes back into the regional leadership group there. So, and just an update really in terms of where that is, we've seen the very cusp of heading into the onset of particularly Omicron, into the region here. And that's really where we're starting to see things being stress tested in terms of what case numbers are, and that translates to those that are seeking welfare assistance. And it's not everyone that actually is putting their hand out for welfare. For the most part, people are just really prepared in the sense that they're happy in terms of just getting the clinical stores and supplies they need. For the wider welfare, though, that certainly in terms of the case numbers and the projections for that is really where we've had to move and find a bigger piece of real estate for that preparation of the food packs, or the manaki packs as they're referred to support those cases as they test positive and get wrapped up by the welfare system that kicks in there. So that's it's a fair bit there for COVID. I mean, this thing, referred to as a thing, it lives a life of its own. A week in this tracking COVID, and there's a number of you on this call here that are certainly quite close to really what our regional planning has to remain agile and responsive to. Is actually quite a considerable effort that goes in there. So attachment 1, and I'll just highlight one graph on attachment 1, and I'll get you to look at the page. It's a modelling of the graph on the first wave of Omicron, and I think it's page. It's the Tucker 2 brief, and you'll find a graph on there which shows the regional modelling for that. To put really,
16?
Yes, it should be that one. Page 16. So just to highlight where, even though we've got a lot of cases here, we've seen schools, certainly, and I'd sort of shout out to the education team that's actually got a very good response framework and structure in there. But for the region, and this is the modelling that was produced by Public Health, primarily through with Dr. Osman leading that, where the district sits is around, and we're not even at anywhere near the initial start of the peak. We're around that sort of initial 22 or D plus 22 for the case numbers. So we're not even registering yet the onset of what our regional numbers are already seeing. But already at this point, it's probably worth highlighting the welfare and keeping up with what's coming in now is already quite a considerable burden for the team to keep up with. So I guess any questions on COVID? I do have Nadine as the CEO and the co-chair of the RLG as well. It is certainly consumes a fair and warrants a fair amount of attention in that regional sense, but I can speak to the bits that I can do, and equally for Nadine to talk to the other aspects that may warrant comment.
Thank you for that, Ben. Nadine, do you want to have a quick kōrero before we go to questions?
Yes, I will, through your worship. So just in terms of the RLG, they have set up regional leadership groups across New Zealand. I think there's about 14 of them. And they differ in different regions. In our region, we have the chief executives that from iwi, our iwi partners, myself, Trust Tide Apati. We also have community members. We also have health chief executive. We have community leaders that are kind of on the ground and delivering some services. And the purpose of that group is to really provide information and intel back into central government, but also to get that coordination going operationally on the ground. And so we meet regularly, once a week and more if required, and try and resolve some of the issues that might be happening around our coordinated approach, or where we might need to gear up or lean in to other organisations. So it's working now really well, and because of it, been able to resolve a number of key issues for our coordination.
Thank you for that. And just before I open for questions, I just want to make an observation from my side, having been involved and in some of these workshops. preparing for COVID obviously is a health response, and our health teams have been working tirelessly to get the hospital ready, to make sure they coordinate that if there's support needed or when the support is needed in our community, that is ready. And then we work alongside our iwi health providers and also our iwi partners. But I just want to give a shout out to Ben, who has been pulling all of this together. It's been a massive effort, and the reason Ben is so good at this is because civil defence do these things. They do pull together organisations. So I do want to give a big shout out to Ben and civil defence, to our iwi partners, to our iwi health providers, Turanga Health, Ngāti Porou Haora, as well as Haora Tai Rāwhiti. It's been a massive effort. We can see the paying off now as our numbers increase. People are being contacted by the Takatu Hub, and they're given the support they need. So I just want to acknowledge Ben. Thank you for pulling that together and helping everything come together so that we can look after our community. Okay, councillors, I am going to start with Councillor Worsnop, then Councillor Foster, and then Councillor Gregory. Thank you.
Thank you. My question was just around the modelling. I was quite shocked with the projected modelling, and I was just wondering how confident we are that the rate of Māori hospitalisations would be as high as it says here. I understand health outcomes, etc., are somewhat disparate in our region, but to that extent, when just further on in the presentation, it shows that we actually have a bigger population of older people in non-Māori, quite substantially bigger. And it also says that we don't have the information on pre-existing health conditions. So that combination of things made me kind of go, whoa, how confident are we with the modelling?
So the response really to that, I made mention really as a region where we certainly follow the lead, particularly Northland is a good indicator for us. And equally, this isn't my area of expertise, but I certainly sit in terms of where the briefings with the medical officer health and the health team providing these briefs. The model, yes, in terms of what's coming, because certainly that peak is quite considerable. So as I say, it actually highlights where we're not even at the foothills of getting anywhere near to climb Everest yet with what's coming in here. It's still used as the model. Councillor Worsnop, I refer to this when I check in with the Takatu Hub. Where are we relative to the curve in terms of the horizontal scale there? So still valid. What we do have certainly, and what the Takatu Hub have produced, which equally is discoverable in terms of the data, and it collates the Northland's response, particularly the active response and where the modelling goes to. And we actually, the Takatu Hub use that also because it's a very high correlation in terms of demographic and population relative to where the active cases are tracking. And I guess we've got the benefit of retrospective, analysis of where those figures are, given they're 2 weeks ahead, really in terms of where Tai Rāwhiti is at the moment. So that's probably to get beyond that for myself. That's probably a discussion with the statistician from Health, but certainly still valid for what we're using.
Thank you. Thanks for that, Ben. Move to Councillor Foster. Thank you.
Yeah, okay. Yeah, thank you, Ben, and congratulations to you and your team and everyone involved with what's happening. Fantastic effort. My question is that the cases that we have here in Gisborne already that are growing, is there any data that gives us the information about how many of those people are vaccinated or non-vaccinated that are contracting Omicron? And the other question would be how severe is the Omicron affecting those cases? Are we seeing severe cold symptoms, or is it just mild, like some people are saying? Now, I do have another question, and that is about the the operational procedures that are going on at the moment at the hospital, are they being disrupted or cancelled because of what might happen in the future with Omicron here? So there's a couple of questions there.
Thank you, Councillor Foster. Mr. Green.
Yes, so a lot of that, great questions, Councillor Foster. The bulk of that, the response for that really is a health. So we didn't get into the detailed analytics of the current case flows in terms of the level of vaccination, etc. What I can talk today, however, is what certainly is we know in terms of impact for some of these cases is more anecdotal in terms of what we deal with. We don't have really the insight into the clinical symptoms or the way people present for being taken into medical treatment. There is, as I understand from yesterday, there's I think one case, and I could stand corrected on that, that was referred into ICU, but certainly in terms of the pressure that's coming onto the hospital already is certainly the biggest concern there from what colleagues in the Takatu hub, who are very much obviously from the health side of things, is what's coming through already. That's probably the main thing, and that'll start, much as you've seen with the national media, perhaps have a flow-on effect for elective surgeries and the sort of things that takes health professionals to keep on top of the BAU. Beyond that, look, I don't have really the knowledge or background to sort of provide any further detail than that.
Okay, yeah, thank you.
Thanks for that, Ben. Councillor Gregory, and then Councillor Faulkner, and then Councillor Akuhata-Brown.
Thank you.
And Dowsing.
For this report, Ben.
You'll have to speak up a bit, Debbie. It's difficult to hear you.
Okay. Is that better?
Yep.
Okay. Thank you for the report. I was just, how do people access the Takatu Welfare Hub? I presume it's through getting a positive test, but just thinking ahead, when people won't be going to get tested, how will they access help if they need it through that?
Thanks.
Yep. Thanks, Councillor Gregory. From what's really in it, the way the welfare wraparound, or the way that the system responds, is aligned to really where the current national controls come in. So moving from a level 2 to level 3 largely sees the whole system move from engaged, directed content being given to a household or individual that's tested positive. Really what you're seeing now is the access, and that's a self-help, and you see that really in the way that the rapid antigen testing, etc., is part of that national rollout. So the access to that for most will be certainly aligning to that model that has self-help in there. Clearly there are those, whether it be vulnerable groups or people that certainly need assistance in that regard, and the Manaaki concept and system really is to make sure that no one falls through the gaps there. So certainly not everyone's connected in the IT sense, or they're the sort of the ones that really the system is keeping in touch with as well. And equally, outside of your key Manaaki hub, you've got really a lot of our NGOs and I'll take my hat off to the organisations such as Supergrands and the food providers there that actually, the Kaiti Collective, that have that very well integrated connection as well. And it's making sure that we've got the whole welfare bubble in that sense connected to make sure that we have that crossover. And that's part of really going back to November last year, is there were so many different groups really with well-intended focus on that welfare, but largely disconnected to know who's doing what there. And that's where probably, I think as a region, we've benefited from, unfortunately, from this whole thing, is that we're better connected in that welfare sense now in terms of where we ever were coming into it, because it was very much everyone's on different dance floors, but listening to the same piece of music in that regard.
Thanks for that, Sven. Okay, Councillor Faulkner, did you just have a hand and then?
Yeah. I was getting ahead of you, Your Worship. I apologise. I was trying to get rid of my hand quickly. Ben, huge congratulations. I know the horsepower that you've had to throw in behind us, so I certainly echo is congratulations for you and your team. I think what I was asking is, could you give my fellow councillors, because I'm involved with the Takatū response, a quick précis of what actually happens when you get that positive test in your household from Takatū, because that way, if people are, because we're entering a phase where people are going to be self-testing, they're not quite sure what resources are available to them. As members of and leadership roles in this region, we'll have councillors getting asked, what do I do? Are you able to just give them a quick précis of how that all works now?
Yep, thank you, Councillor Faulkner. So I certainly would be able to answer in terms of whether the system is at present, and bear in mind that there is some fluidity with the manner that the whole system's evolving to align to where the level changes are taking place. Having been through personally seen the aspects of what a close contact goes through, in the sense of welfare, it's very black and white in terms of having a positive notification for your household, because that really engages you directly into the system in terms of that contact tracing. Now, part of the contact tracing call is the triage what goes through a question tree in terms of determining needs for welfare. So it's what follows through in the initial focus, particularly where Takatū has been delivering on the initial focus, has been the first 48 hours of support, and the Manaaki pack that they've put together has been what the household or individual receives in terms of that initial support going into that. We've had in the past, part of what the RLG has been really focusing on is the process flow, really from that post 48 hours and the ongoing support for the duration of that isolation. And that's certainly been, that's a couple of wrinkles in there. I mean, really the, that handover, who has that and how that the passage of information and that flow is connecting to ensure that the support and the check-in with whānau, both from a physical resource in terms of the, whether it be food or hygiene products, but also the check-in for the mental health component of that. That's quite a key aspect of what we've all been through there. Close contacts, I would say, probably sit in that zone where your self-isolation takes place in terms of that contact. Similar, there is really in terms of that needs test being, well, not even a test, it's the wrong word. I'd say that needs analysis being conducted and people reaching out there. And equally, just particularly with the Rural Coordination Group, which Councillor Faulkner chairs, that is not restricted to postcode or area within the district. And that's been part of what we've been working with the hub for, particularly in the sort of rural scenario as well. And a remote farming operation in terms of business continuity, and that's the sort of level where we look at how you're looking at your support from the likes of your national bodies, federated farmers, or even our regional bodies here for the same as well. But obviously the evolution, particularly with the way the government process or handling for the system has that as we head into the self-help regime, as I mentioned before, and that's really, I think, a communications campaign. If there's people unsure around that process, then certainly that's a focus for the hub and our comms team with how to really help reinforce really that there is a number or assistance available, doesn't matter where people live there.
Thanks for that, Ben. Councillor Akuata Brown, Dowsing, Sheldrake. Thank you.
Ata maria koutou. I've done my part. I gave blood today. I just, with all due respect to everything that is happening, I see that there's already talks of the BA.2 variant, and it's really hard because I do sense in my region and across New Zealand, of course, there is that tiredness with regard to all the messaging, etc. So thank you, Councillor Faulkner, because as councillors, of course, we want to be able to give a qualified, detailed answer to the many questions we're asked by individuals in the various states they're in to this this pandemic. And so, you know, like for me, I've had to reread and kind of really qualify, you know, what is it that people need to know right now. So thank you, Ben, and the team for everything in this space, and really hope you're getting time to take care of yourself and in this space too, to staff that are in this space. So for me, it's just how is that kind of in the plan of it, when we know that these variants, you know, that there's already talks of this new, you know, substrain of Omicron, etc. So without sounding like, are we futuristically enough in that space, or do we just stay in the now and totally focus our attention to what we're dealing with regarding this outbreak and the way it's working its way through community, so that we're, you know, focused and attentive to that. But I just, the future space, I was wondering how far forward regarding a new variant.
Thank you. Ben.
Great question, Councillor. And look, you know, you're heading into the realm of really where the national response, particularly with the epidemiology and in terms of the national protocols that are being adopted for that. What I can say, and I think, you know, we should really acknowledge what it's taken, and particularly when we go back to where we were at the end of September, with the level of vaccination rates we had there. So the fact that this region has met the KPI and achieved that for 90%, regardless of thinking, look, and that's getting into the science of this, of the virus there, but the fact that we've got that as at least what it's taken to get people protected, and using the science that actually validates the reason why we get vaccinated, and it's a different cope-up altogether. But that in itself, and what it took for the Hauora, the integration of and support of the regional leadership group and the number of agencies as part of that to get there, I think certainly in terms of where we're heading into, and I refer to page 16 of that Takatu report. That's why that vaccination campaign has certainly attracted the effort, the time, and the resource to really get our region prepared for this. And this is where things will start playing out by those numbers. And if you see the Northland tracking for those cases, it pretty much holds true in terms of where that modelling line runs to.
Thank you for that, Ben. Nadine, you want to add to that?
Yes, I did, through your worship, just have a comment in terms of the modelling and what we're seeing, and you just have to go onto the MOH website, which contains all the stats as the disproportionate representation or over-representation of Māori and Pacifica people with the current COVID cases from August was the data that I was looking at, with them comprising 62% of cases, of 30,000 plus odd cases. And so bearing in mind that when you're looking at that, looks very, is quite confronting, is actually playing out on at a national scale, albeit quite small, but that's, you know, in terms, I think there was a question around the modelling, that this is potentially the reality that we will be facing. So the better prepared we are, the more we'll be able to cope. And I don't know if many of you saw the announcement yesterday made by Minister Henare in terms of the $140 million going to Māori and Pacifica providers for the welfare response. And so our iwi here, Toitu, were very successful in securing some funding to support iwi-led, community-led responses to the welfare support, which is great for the region.
Thank you for that. Councillor Dowsing and then Councillor Sheldrake.
Actually, I'm going to pass. I think my question's been answered a little bit. I'll look to the Ministry of Health website for the info I was wanting.
Thank you. Councillor Sheldrake.
Thank you, Ben, and good morning. You know, you flick on the TV, the radio, this whole COVID, everything is just, we're just being bombarded with this. Just sort of on the ground across our wider community, how do you think the communication strategy is working? You know, the reach into every little crevice of our tairāwhiti.
Mr. Ben.
Yes, look, if you look at who makes up really the representation, particularly within a Takatu hub, and really the this connection to groups outside of that as well. You're looking across a number, certainly all our iwi providers are very active, and that gets down to whānau and hapu level. And, we'll certainly look at the campaigns that run up in Marakawa, Top the Coast, through the Hauora. So, you've got to, I guess, make the message digestible in terms of the audience that you're dealing with, and really can contextualise what those messages are. And for the most part, look, and this is obviously only an opinion in terms of what we get from feedback out of Takatu there. I think the key message is really in terms of that Manaaki is there to support people, and people are, knowing people that have active positive cases in the system now, and seeing what they get and their feedback from that. I'd take some heart that at least there is the messaging is certainly there for getting through in terms of where it needs to. In terms of that detail, though, look, that's something I'd probably, you'd need to almost go and do a survey in terms of how well that is actually working for all. So I guess it's probably as much as I can give there. There's certainly no lack of effort that goes into the communication space and integrating what we need to get as a combined message and be regionally connected in terms of leading this thing through.
Thank you. Just one little subsequent one. Who chairs Takatu? Who's the chairperson?
Well, Takatu is a health-run body, so we've got a sort of a clinical leads as well as the welfare connectors in there. It's more. It's a hub in that sense that connects, and but equally a key component of their connectors where the health team have a senior management in there as well.
Thank you.
Thank you. And since we've last met, this is the first opportunity we've really had to discuss this, also to publicly acknowledge that we have reached the 90% double vaccination rate. And I checked out some emails last night. We are nearly at 93% first jabs. So I also want to take this opportunity. This has been a massive effort by Hauora Tairāwhiti, Turanga Health, and Ngāti Porou Hauora, and some community groups as well up the coast, who have gone out of their way to reach out to anyone that are ready to receive the vaccination. And I also want to thank our community. More than 90% of people in our community have played their part. And I'm sure what we are seeing unfolding and will be unfolding in the next while is so much better than what we would have seen if everyone did not play their part. So I just want to publicly acknowledge our health providers who have for the last year worked so hard, weekends, Christmas, because we had that outbreak just before Christmas, New Year. Our schools, one of my boys have been a close contact, and the schools communicate well. They make sure our kids learn online. So it's such a massive national effort. And I cannot be prouder of how everyone in Tairāwhiti have pulled together and make this work so that we keep the vulnerable safe. We play our role so that when we do get COVID, and we have our booster so we don't get that sick, as that is the public health advice, and that is what we follow and try to make clear. Everyone have access to that. So thank you, Tairāwhiti, for this. Last question, Councillor Dowsing, did you quickly wanted to ask something?
No, I was just going to say that at the UK, they only got up to around about their 70, nearer to 80% rate for vaccination, but they're actually seeing pretty good outcomes now, even with the lower level of vaccination. With all mandates dropped, they're still seeing deaths slightly higher than influenza and pneumonia, but you've got to attribute it to still a significant portion of the public being vaccinated and keeping that hospitalisation low.
And also you need to take into account countries like the UK, US, South Africa. The virus have ripped through those countries in the last 2 years. So they have so many people that already had the virus. So that also contributes in the stats that there are people that have some immunity because they already have had the virus. Anywho, Ben, thank you for this COVID update. Councillors, we will keep you updated. Like you see, Jade every morning just sent through what health sends to us in the morning. Just a shout out to everyone. I know it's not our ideal meeting via Zoom, but we've just taken on the challenge. We do our thing, stay safe, and just carry on and see, hopefully in the next month or two, things will settle down and we'll get back to business as usual, hopefully. Okay, Ben, so we've had some discussion around our COVID regional update. Do you want to have a quick kōrero to us about the ECC, and then we can move to the NEMA update?
Yes, thank you, Worship. So yes, just an update with the Emergency Coordination Centre. We've just engaged really the third party to take us through the consent or resource consenting process and public consultation for that. But I just would make comments some of the public, I guess, assumptions around the purpose of what an ECC does. It's not there to provide the welfare response or a harbour as a shelter for people affected by the sort of event and the purpose that it exists for. Primarily, purpose really is to have a dedicated headquarters in that sense that we actually run and manage our response from there. So that just given the obviously the pressures with the building market in general at the moment, and you'll see the revised footprint or the footprint we've ended up with the size of that facility. It's not going to be pretty, but it certainly will be fit for purpose, and it's better than really. I applaud the fact that we've actually got this on the drawing board, and we're progressing with this project, because it certainly is at the time that the balloon goes up to use that building for the purpose it's intended for. It certainly will be quite a critical building and the facility that it provides that response that we can work from.
Thank you for that. Pat, you've got your hand up.
Thanks, Madam Chair. I just wonder, and Ben just made a comment that people aren't clear about what the purpose is. Maybe we could have just another piece of public information about what it is for, because we know, but I don't think everybody else does know. And in the environment in which we're working at the moment, everything is rather focused on COVID. So perhaps through the Mayor to the CE, we could have a press release about the stage that it's at, and that it is actually a civil defence headquarters for regular civil defence rather than anything for the moment.
Thanks for that. Yes, I see a thumbs up from the CEO.
Thank you.
Okay.
I have dropped off the photo which Shannon suggested might help my sound, because we are dropping in and out this morning. So that's why I've just gone to sound and no video.
That's all good, Pat, and the sound is all good now, thanks. So it's working. Okay, Ben, so then we move to our NEMA updates, and we can talk about the Resilience Fund application a little bit later. Anything you want, and there was quite extensive NEMA papers at the back, anything you want to share with us there, and then we can open up for questions.
Yes.
Ben, just before you go, Nadine's hand is up. Nadine, you're muted.
Sorry, Your Worship, just in terms of, and I saw Ian on the line, were you referring with reference to the NEMA trifecta program, or were you?
Yes, so both of those, just the NEMA update, and then we will also talk about the trifecta update.
No, all good. Sorry, I was lost for you.
No, we'll do both those before we move to the Resilience Fund application.
Okay.
Thanks, Ben.
Thanks, Your Worship. Yes, look, certainly the consultation is in full stride for the trifecta program. So, and equally, as you said, it's quite a comprehensive in terms of the document that's attached, that provides the overview and really where the key areas of the Act as they're going through this iteration of consultation and taking it through the process there. Obviously, the other key bit there is just in terms of the CE of NEMA, Dave Gorn's update, and Dave's certainly well and truly in seat now. And if we look at the number of national events or responses over the course of this year with tsunami, cyclones to varying degrees, that whether it be a near miss or actually dealing with them, and the sort of events we've had already, and we're only in month 2 of 2022. So be fair to say it's going to be a busy year coming up for, the fact we're getting into our winter. It's a key part I would highlight, just in terms of a comment from a regional perspective, is with the framework, and particularly with iwi engagement. And that's it's a critical piece. I mean, the current act is clearly deficient in terms of the referencing with treaty partnership, and that's clearly where the minister has looked to put that as quite a key component in terms of that partnership component being built into the act, and how we work to really embed that going through there. So our iwi partners, and I'll talk to probably an additional item later on, Your Worship, just with the outcome of the Marae Resilience Fund and grant that I think as a region, when I run you through really what and how we've gone about that and what we've ended up with, which is actually quite significant, and I think quite, for us, sets us really up as probably a leader for hopefully our other regions to follow in terms of what we've got there.
Thanks for that, Ben. And the Marae Resilience press release was just emailed through to all councillors, that we've just received that. Nadine, you did have a question, you just forgot it.
Yes, I did. No, I thought we were in a different spot on the agenda. So just through Your Worship, one of the just a flag for council in terms of the trifecta review is that in terms of its significance, it is a big piece of work, and because we as a unitary operate quite differently from other civil defence groups, the implications could be quite large in terms of the operations, depending on where it anchors itself. And I think we need to be aware that, running alongside it with Three Waters and the Future for Local Government, there's a lot of intersect around pieces of work that we, when NEMA have discussed this with us, we've been pushing for a bit more of that joined up connection with the other reforms that are going on with local government. I think by and large, however, that where this is tracking to, there's some really good stuff in what's being proposed in terms of the trifecta review, but really it is going to come down to capacity to be able to input and managing the connections across the various reform packages.
Thanks for that. Ian, welcome.
Yeah, Your Worship, welcome. I would echo Nadine's comments. We met yesterday around the trifecta review and the plan and guide, which has just started its actual review. And look, we're breaking that down into 11 sections or 11 projects. So we're just trying to coordinate how we're going to actually reach into the groups to do that, who we're going to contact, and I guess the time frame. So I'm just sort of signaling at the moment, yes, there will be a bit of work, and it is quite massive. And we're starting to do that now, and we're looking at the time frame, I think, from February till June to do that consultation. In respect to the rest of it, as you're aware, the Minister met with iwi on the 16th, and the feedback from that, or the key points from that at the moment, are there's overall support from iwi for the bill, but we're recognising that as it's only a first step. Another key point is that there will be challenges operationalising this bill, especially for iwi and CDEM. We're looking at obviously the representation of Maori on it, and the mana oriti. It's not recognised well in the bill, and we need to ensure that the appropriate language is in the bill as well. And not only that, we need to recognise the normal working environment or way iwi work, and that's not conveyed in the bill as well. So they're the 4 key points that actually came out of it. I can say we're also summarising the legislative submissions that came in around the new legislative bill. That consultation is now finished, and we received 35 online and 10 written submissions. So we're now just summarising those, putting them to the Minister, and hopefully we'll have a draft back to everyone on that as well. I can answer any questions if you wish, but at this stage, I think, in fact, the trifecta, it's a lot of work. It is going to have a major impact on all groups.
Thank you for that, Ian. Okay, Councillor Faulkner and then Councillor Dowsing. You're muted, Sandra.
Yep, sorry, my apologies. I notice on page 26, Ben and Nadine, these are probably questions for you, the new preparedness campaign program. It says in there that it's seeking to reverse Aotearoa's trend of complacency in emergency preparation. Given your involvement thus far, how do you feel we're placed regionally? I know we've done an awful lot of work in this space going, to this point. How do you feel we're placed right now?
Shall I do the initial answer for that?
Thanks, Ben.
Look, I'll refer you back to we ran an activity last year, and it was actually a deliberate comms communications campaign around the national shakeout. Now, I highlighted really what we took to get and ended up with the highest national result in terms of the region nationally for that campaign. So particularly with the 26% uptake across the region was actually, I think the next nearest region was around 8%, 6 or 8% lower than that. What that highlighted and particularly was an excellent result, because the translation of that sign-up rate into the it's actually international promoted campaign was the number of schools as well that actually did the physical hikoi, and we're still in the auspices of COVID sort of rules and that there. Beyond that as well, and I think you make a good point. I mean, we've certainly done a lot of work out there, and actually for the size of this team in terms of what it punches out and what we did on the back of the 5th of March last year, that really highlighted what we can do better in terms of where we actually need to get that preparation, particularly around how we activate and get our communities sort of in tune with what our natural hazards are. And that largely, I guess, manifested itself in terms of the press release, what you've seen there. That's the result of 40 plus community hui that have been conducted since the 5th of March to actually get a submission that's got $1.6 million worth of emergency funding in there. So the press release that'll be out shortly for this is really only the start of actually amping up really and connecting and I guess invigorating our community structures and actually focusing on the structure and community level training for that. So I would say certainly, in terms of work that's been initiated previously from our predecessors, where we sit at this point in time, I take a huge amount of confidence in terms of where we are now. And we haven't even started to get into it. And we are certainly a lot further up the curve. Equally around the regulatory reference there to iwi integration, ours isn't about how we do that, it's how we can do it better. And I think that's a far better place to be than those that are actually trying to work out how do we bring this thing together. And that's probably a critical, comment in terms of where and how well we actually have that integration, and really, something actually we can promote and actually share in terms of what our region probably punches above its weight for.
Kia ora, thanks for that, Ben. Oh, Mr. Shannon Dowsing. Oops, you're muted, Shannon.
Sorry, my question was going back to the almost to Councillor to the Councillor's opening statement about being on constant state of civil defence in this trifecta review. Just wondering how much work that's likely to introduce, and is it going to be a lot of burden on us at this time when you're already working very hard?
Ben.
Yeah, thanks for the question, Councillor. It's look, the reality at this point in time, the team is two. I have a third team member that was signed up last year that's finishing his army course and then joined us in the first week of March. And equally, if you look at it's one of the 16 groups that make up the civil defence framework relative to the outputs and what we can do as part of our BAU component of doing our job inter-region. Obviously, there's actually your demands from your national sort of body as well is quite considerable. To be honest, I think it just comes down to really we prioritise the sort of areas that are more relevant to us, and that's really we put the effort into. It's certainly part of what we can handle. It certainly doesn't mean that we've got time to sort of reflect in terms of what are we going to be doing next. Some of the work demands really are the self-initiated. The 3-day workshop, pulling that together as a national and regional activity, to me is worth my time and the time of this team actually getting that activity underway, because it's the payback or the gap that we have at the moment. Much as the press release you see, that covers all our rural areas, and we can know that they're going to be able to sort of thrive in that sense of recovery. But the critical, I would flag, is actually how well our urban focus is for the type of event such as a hikarangi fracture, and what that strategic recovery and investment into that sector looks like.
Thank you. Ian.
Yeah, thank you, Madam Chair. In respect to the councillor's question, yes, we already recognise this will be an imposition and I guess an increase on the workload for groups. So we're looking at how we can reduce that, how we can work with other groups, other agencies, other departments, what they're doing, and get the feedback at the same time, or look at other ways that how we can put these all together and reduce that impact on the group. So hopefully it will be a minimal impact on the groups going forward.
You. Okay, anything else that we need to discuss, or questions that councillors have in regards to Ben's report? Councillor Faulkner.
No, I'd just like to congratulate Ben again and move the paper for noting, please, Your Worship.
Thank you. That's good. Seconded by Councillor Wharehenga. All in favour, hands up. Thank you for that, councillors. Thank you for Ben and Ian and Nadine for preparing this report and answering our questions. Without further ado, Ben, is there anything, or Ian, that you wanted to add that might not be on this report? Just an update, a quick update on something that might not be in this report. Now's the time that we've got everyone together. Go, Ben.
Kia ora, Your Worship. So just give the councillors an update. We still have the East Cape Road. It's currently still under repair. We're obviously heading into week 4 for that. We've supported the whānau out there, and there's 5 families, as you would have seen from the initial summary report sent through. And in anticipation at this stage, we're still working within the 2-week time frame that was given to us from Monday. And hopefully that's actually going to be less than what we've put out there. For the most part, the support from the community in particular, and I'll highlight the efforts of the area coordinator, Hau Havel, and Michelle Wano, along with the Progressive in Te Aroha. Just a great example of really how a region actually comes together, but actually connecting in with our regional resource, and equally supported by NEMA for this one also. And certainly they're in good heart, so they've been well supported at this point, and hopefully they get their road back shortly.
Thanks for that. Ian.
Just one further point. As you're aware, Omicron is increasing, and at the moment we're looking at the registration of critical businesses, and I would strongly encourage the council to consider registering with MB as a critical business. What that does, and what it means, is if any of your staff actually are a close contact to a positive case, they can then do a rapid antigen test every day, and if it's negative, they can still come to work. In respect of anyone that actually in your workload does become a positive case, the MOH provide those rapid antigen tests as well to you free of charge. Any other RAT or rapid antigen tests that you require for your normal surveillance, you will have to purchase. And we've just put in an order, and we're expecting that to come back mid-March. The other thing that I'm happy to say is that we have just advertised on Monday for a senior advisor for Maori policy and practice lead. So if you've got someone that you think could benefit us, we'd be very interested in having a chat to them, please. Got a
Thanks,
plug for Nima there.
Thanks for that, Ian. And James just commented, we have completed the registration for the close contact exemption scheme already. So we are on there.
Excellent.
Thank you. Awesome. Nadine, anything you want to add before we close our hui?
No, I just shook my head and jest because we are significantly short on resources, staff resources, and particularly around Māori engagement is an area where also MFE is gearing up to help with their reform. So about 14 job adverts are coming out to the regions for Māori relationship engagement. So yeah, we'd like to retain ours.
Fair enough.
I can't blame you.
Last question is from Bill, and then we will close our hui.
Thank you, Madam Chair. I just wanted to support Ben. I was going to ask him a direct question, given the load and the pressure of your work. You fellas are handling it. When you mentioned that there were 40 community meetings, that's a huge ask. But coming back to East Cape and the position there, I was picked up and taken up on Monday by roading. There were 2 services, one performed at the bluff before they got underway with the diggers, etc., and the trucks, and then back to the camping ground where they're going to dump all the material. The roading are right on top of it. They've done an excellent job and are doing, right at this point in time, a great job up there. But you haven't answered my question, or I'll give you a chance to answer it. Ben, what's the load like in terms of the job?
Oh, that's it. I could describe it as an own goal in that regard. I mean, it's certainly, there was a deliberate campaign of engagement. And I guess the payback for that directly is I'd rather take the hurt. Well, taking the hurt there is actually we're getting the dividends from that now, and that's really set the scene in terms of what the Marae Resilience grant and that initial funding that Puni Kōkiri, that $1 million worth of funding, the actual output of those hui is what the direct benefit is in terms of what this submission has just been signed off with the press release there. So, you know, really, if I equate that 44 hui to get $1.6 million worth of emergency equipment funding into this region, I'd do that again this year if I had to. So, but, you know, really in terms of the other work streams, it's sort of, there's nothing extraordinary in there. I think it's a case of managing what is actually priority for us, and there's a number of competing demands for that. We still we're not strategically you know, locked in with COVID in terms of the sort of day to day, but in terms of where Nadine is certainly is from an RLG or the GDC side is actually, you know, we've been asked to tap in terms of planning context, and that's what we do quite well. I mean, it's really been a sort of troubleshooter there, and we come back out again and get back onto what our sort of day-to-day stuff is there. So it is busy. Look, it's no less than what any of the 16 groups are, and probably for the region in terms of other departments about the same. But I would hang my hat on last year in terms of what it took to get that in terms of that press release going out. That to me is a significant result for this region, and I think it's something we should really promote and applaud in terms of what Te Puni Kōkiri and iwi have actually reached and to fund us for that.
Thank you.
Okay, I have Councillor Seymour and Councillor Branston. Thank you.
Thanks, Madam Chair. Thanks very much, Ben. Sorry, because half of the meeting has been cutting in and out. Have we actually received a notice that we are successful in the 1.6 million, or are you saying that that application is now being made? I just didn't quite catch the detail.
So we've been successful in terms of the what was sought in that funding has been approved by Te Puni Kōkiri, and the initial phase 1, there's 3 phases for this project, is just under $1 million that is being used by Te Puni Kōkiri to get that underway. Phase 2 and 3 is what the iwi collective or Toitu is committing to, that's 670 odd thousand for across their various rohe across the district there.
Thanks very much, Madam Chair. It was still broken up, so I look forward to reading the press release. But it sounds great that some of that activity, which I know was planned, and the resources that are going to be advantageous to our small townships in an emergency might be available. That's great. Thank you.
Thanks, Pat. Councillor Cranston.
Yeah, thanks. It's probably outside the meeting, but I just, when you were talking about closing the meeting, I'm not sure whether we were actually going, but I would like an update on the slip that's threatening the waterway. Probably after the meeting, yeah, if possible. Yeah.
Yep, we can do that. Mr. Wilson, I see you just came online.
Through your worship, we have been working with the community up around Te Arai and the landowners as to what we're going to do there for the water supply. The slip is below the water pipe. It sounds funny, but the water pipe's about 50 metres further away from where the slip is. But if the whole hill gives way, then we'd have some issues around what was going to happen with the pipe. But we're confident at this stage that we can reinstate some access through there. We do have some resources that we are putting together, and we're working with the landowners to reinstate that access. Hopefully by winter, we should have a plan of attack in place, implemented and done by then.
Thanks for that, and you'll keep us updated as it goes.
Yeah.
Thanks,
Mr. Wilson. Is that a plan in place for any future breakages, like something like a flexible pipe you can roll out for bypasses, or is it something specific to that event?
So through your worship, we have a number of critical spares that we keep on out at Wainake. We also have some here in town, so we have critical spares. It doesn't mean we have large volumes, but we do have a plan in place for anything that was going to happen, and we try and open it as much as we could. There is a report coming up, though, about this and about the funding and how we're going to do it. The reason I'm being cagey is because we're still working with landowners around access and the options that we're looking at around that slip. So I don't want to speak out of turn without them having their input in this part of that.
Kia ora. And thank you, everyone. Thank you, Ben, Ian, and the GDC team. Councillors, thank you for your contributions. I closed this meeting. Did I put this? I did put it. I had Sandra and Josh. Yes, it was put. So I officially closed our civil defence meeting, and we will see everyone online for our next meeting soon. Take care. Ka kite. See you soon.
Bye.